When I had the opportunity to come here a couple of weeks ago and had a look at the jar, one of the very interesting things were the jars that were upstairs, and one that jumped out at me was one that had a label on it which said Fred's Last Jam Jar, 1981. And so my first poem is about Fred's last jam jar in 1981 and about the phenomenon that is cagmaggery, which is a word that should be in the Oxford English Dictionary. So this poem is called Stow It, Don't Throw It. When Fred screwed up his last jam jar in 1981, having filled it with brass hooks, knobs, bolts and rings, and then placed it on the wooden shelf beside the other jars with the contents on display of many things, he was unaware his fine collection, lovingly arranged, was good evidence that in life there exists folk inherently disposed to find and store all sorts of stuffs, known in certain circles as cagmaggerists. For cagmaggery is a mixture of all sorts of bits and bobs that accumulate in boxes, drawers and tins, with the quality and type dependent where the stuff is found, but in some households might end up in the bins. Whereas we, of Fred's persuasion, wouldn't ever knowingly acquiesce to its disposal in this way, for we have a little voice that would pipe up inside our heads, urging that it could be put to use someday. One just never knows when one will need a washer, screw or bolt, length of string, knick-knack or other odd doodah. And if there's a message or a moral to this little verse, then it's hang on to that useful old jam jar. So what follows now is a poetic cagmaggery. It's poems that I've written that I don't seem to be able to get rid of and must come in useful someday. This one, around the mill, there's a wonderful arrangement of bikes around the outside, and when I saw that I thought of this poem. It's about a very old bicycle which is called a Sunbeam Roadster, and it's about a very old man who was riding it. It's called The Last of the Few. Along a breezy road astride the pride of Sunbeam works, his roadster testament to years of care with oily rag, the ever-ancient bicyclist goes by unsteadily, with books bound for the library tucked in his cycle bag. Old Ernest Alfred Whatmuff, known as Eeyore to his chums when he was but a callow youth back in the distant past, at 91 defies Newtonian laws of gravity and sets off down the high street at a pace that's not too fast. Adorned with handlebar moustache, a trilby on his head, and regimental Air Force tie proclaiming membership, anachronistic to the last. With all that 50s chic, old Eeyore cuts a dash in Macintosh and cycle clip. The ladies from his era raise their heads as best they can and flash coquettish eyelashes through thick prescription glass. As Ernest, in precarious style, sails by with winning smile, his trilby raised and playful wind disturbing his moustache. He wobbles onward on his quest along the busy street, around the bend until he's well and truly out of sight, and leaves the world the poorer for the absence of the squeak his Sunbeam Roadster made when on the seat he did alight. And if you are disposed to thoughts more fanciful than plain, you might imagine Ernest in a Spitfire back in time, the sun high over England's fields as Eeyore bravely flies, with Britain's finest skimming clouds in 1939. I understand the title for this evening was In the Flow? In the Flow?
Yes.
Yeah. Right, well this is Against the Flow. It's back at home, my children are now hiding behind the sofa watching Doctor Who, and this is a poem called Glad to be a Dalek. I'm not your average Dalek. You know the sort I mean. All bent on domination, giving vent to all that spleen. I like to think I'm different from other Dalek crew, who keep emotions hidden while exterminating you. I don't agree with killing, with plans to subjugate. The universe is lovely, and I find it hard to hate. In fact, I've got my own plan. I'm working from within. I'm teaching other Daleks how to knit and sew and spin. I run a secret workshop, where Daleks can relax, and find their inner Dalek, get the monkey off their backs. We try to be creative, to make things not destroy. I run a Dalek choir, learning Ludwig's Ode to Joy. So if you see a Dalek, in home knit wool poncho. Don't run off in a panic, come across and say hello. Simon says, yeah, my poetry tends to be fanciful and weird, and this is probably about as fanciful and as weird as it gets. It's the main protagonist in this poem is a stick of rhubarb with a death wish, and it's called The Sad Tale of the Reckless Rhubarb. And at the end, if you feel like a bit of audience participation, then at the end, you know, an or would really finish the poem off nicely. So, The Sad Tale of and it's actually based in my original area of where I come from, where my family come from, which is over on the east coast. I come from a place called Goole. I am a Ghoulie, and this is called The Sad Tale of the Reckless Rhubarb. 'Twas on a clear and moonlit night by Castleford's green fields, the stick of rhubarb's mind to thoughts adventurous did yield. And turning to his nearby love, he made a solemn pledge to sail away like Hemingway and live life on the edge. His love, a slender leak, was anxious for his safe return, but with a brave and loving smile disguised her grave concern, and pinned a white rose on his chest so he might not forget. His roots lay in the rhubarb sheds of Yorkshire, not Tibet. The rhubarb journeyed far and wide upon his reckless quest, and seeking thrills where'er he could from Goole to Budapest, he soon became quite famous in the circles of those chaps who dice with death and thrive on courting danger and mishap. But, flirting with capricious Lady Luck, he soon found out how fickle fortune's finger of ill fate can turn about. And duelling with a Maharaja in the mystic East, our hero was chopped up and served with crumble at a feast. Quite unaware of how our love had made us, quite unaware of how our love had met a sticky end, the faithful Leek made wedding plans whilst waiting for her friend. But over years in Castleford, the Leek remained unwed, and sits in moonlight quite alone, outside the rhubarb shed. Oh. Excellent. Simon mentioned the fact that I am actually the official poet as appointed by the Tripe Marketing Board. I am a Tripe poet, and I am contractually obliged to actually read a poem about tripe on every occasion where I read poetry. So this one is called The Tripe Hound of Little Armstronmere, and it's set in Lancashire, the poem. And it goes like this. Amongst the dark foreboding hills of ancient Lancashire, the eerie howls roll down the moors o'er misty peatland bogs, to echo round the cobble streets of little Armstronmere, and cause the good folk there to stare and shudder in their clogs. For knew they well this howl from hell, and what it did portend, and how great loss was wreaked upon the town in times long past, when from the realms of Lucifer the beast's leash did extend, and Tripe Hound ran amok to leave all mournful and aghast. With sadness and reluctance moved the townfolk to the square, each citizen burdened with a tribute to the feast, which grudgingly they lay upon a table by the mare, who checked its weight would satisfy and sate the evil beast. Then from the hills emerged the brute, with eyes aflame and cruel, as townfolk scuttled off to hide behind their bolted doors, and left a trough of tripe o'er which the Tripe Hound could now drool, and scoff the lot before it disappeared amongst the moors. No morsel left for little Armstronmereans to eat. The town would have to live on offal served up in a skin. With tripe now gone and plans postponed for all to be replete, black pudding topped the carte du jour and stopped them getting thin. Amongst the dark foreboding hills of ancient Lancashire, satanic howls can still be heard o'er misty peatland bogs, and there behind locked doors the folk of little Armstronmere have cause enough to hide their tripe and shiver in their clogs.